I'm Fariba Maleki. When I was in the 4th grade at the age of 10, an incident occurred where I became lost in the forest, and it was there that I encountered a figure that, even now, no one believes me when I recount the story. I was 10 years old at the time, and I was in the 4th grade, and I distinctly recall that it was my final term exams. The very next day after this incident occurred, I had a very important science exam scheduled. That same afternoon, my older sister had proposed we head to the forest to gather some greengages, for we had a garden there that was overflowing with greengage trees, making it a perfect spot. With my sisters and my cousins, I believe we were about 6 or 7 people in total. I was the youngest of the group. We then headed together towards the forest. I clearly recall holding my science textbook in my hand. I remember it vividly. We eventually made our way into the forest. I was still engrossed in my book at the time, and consequently I fell behind the rest of the group members. They were quite far ahead of me, and I had fallen behind. For a moment I lifted my head and saw that no one was around me. I kept calling them, but no sound came back. I said, "Well, I'll just move on ahead. Perhaps they're further up, beneath the trees." And as soon as I ventured forward, I observed a truly verdant, spacious area open up, and trees encircled me on all sides. I distinctly recall looking down at my feet, and it was entirely covered in grass, completely green. For a moment I was terrified. I kept glancing all around me. There was utter silence. No one was around. I called out my sister's name several times. I called out to my cousin, but I heard no sound in return. I looked up at the sky. The sky was visible in such a way that it appeared as a perfectly formed circular shape. The trees were completely framing it all around me, and only a circular patch of the sky was distinctly visible right there in the middle. Then, as I lowered my gaze, I beheld a luminous figure. I must mention, this being was quite tall, and from the crown of its head down to its very toes, it was completely radiant with light. I could somehow say that it was an amber-like state, something along those lines. That's what's currently in my thoughts and memory. He sported a long beard, and his attire was entirely pristine white. But I distinctly recall that his eyes were a vivid, bright blue. I gazed into his eyes and sensed that his age had to be quite advanced. He looked at me for a moment, and from his gaze I understood that he was asking me what was wrong. I said that I was lost in this place. With his look he indicated to me that I was not actually lost. "Oh," I exclaimed, "why am I lost? I wonder where the children went. I've been left all alone." "Oh," I exclaimed, "why am I lost? Then I wonder where the children went." He told me with his eyes, "Don't be afraid, I'm here. I'll help you find your way." I remember exactly that he was standing in a posture like this. His hands were tied, and with his eyes, he gestured for me to look behind me, directing my attention to what was behind me. For a fleeting moment, I glanced back and noticed a pathway had miraculously opened up right there between the trees. I turned around, looked at him, and inquired if I should go this way. He nodded his head in agreement. He replied, "Yes, you should go this way." I turned to look at him once more and express my gratitude. Nevertheless, it proved to be profoundly captivating and exceptionally interesting to me. I saw such a luminous figure there in a place where absolutely no one else could be found, and I bid him farewell. I exited using the route that had been indicated to me. After taking a few steps, I turned to look behind me. I saw no sign of those trees, nor of the particular path that he had previously shown to me. Neither was there any of that green grass that had been under my feet. I found myself right at the entry point of the very forest that my sisters and I had previously ventured into, and at that very instant I heard my sisters' voices, and they were calling out to me. I responded to them. They eventually came and located me. I truly wasn't in my right mind. They approached and inquired, "What occurred? Where were you? We searched everywhere for you." I can't tell you how much time had elapsed. I had entirely lost track of time, but I suppose perhaps an hour or two had slipped away, and my sisters were in such a state of worry and restlessness, yet my science exam book remained clutched in my hand. I distinctly recall being completely immersed in my own thoughts, oblivious to everything around me. I heard their voices. My sister told me to follow after them. We found a spot, a tree that's full of sour plums. We are going to pick some sour plums. I distinctly recall there was also a river flowing right through the middle. There was also a wooden bridge that ran through the middle of it. We had to pass over that wooden bridge. As I started to follow them across the wooden bridge to get to the green gage tree, the book fell out of my hand and into the water. I cried out, "Oh no, my book fell, my science book, I have an exam tomorrow." My oldest cousin, who was the eldest among them all, leaped into the river. The river wasn't very deep, but she bravely jumped into the water, retrieved my book, and then handed it back to me. And this particular experience, it just stayed a profound secret in my mind and in my innermost heart. And for a good few years afterward, I kept this a secret from everyone. However, I always had a deep desire to encounter that luminous figure once more and inquire about their true identity, to understand who exactly had come to my aid. Several years subsequently elapsed, and it was precisely in the year 1997 that my father passed away. I distinctly recall it. It was a rainy evening, right as the sun was setting, and I was seated on the porch. I was in my own world, heartbroken. My father had just passed. It was raining, and with tears in my eyes, I was quietly conversing with my father in my heart, when, in that very moment, I caught sight of that luminous figure in our yard. He appeared with that same powerful presence, the very same magnificence, and that familiar face I had seen so many years before. He was standing just like that. He was in the rain, but he wasn't getting wet. And I gazed upon him, and he, in turn, fixed his eyes on me. He gave me a little smile. From his gaze, I understood that he was asking me, "Why are you sad?" I said, "My father passed away." "My heart is truly broken," I told him. He said, "Don't be sad. He is now in a good place." He said this to me and then vanished directly before my very eyes, and I truly have not seen him since, right up to this present day. However, this is a profound wish that has lingered within my soul, and I truly desire to encounter this luminous figure once again, even if just for a single occasion. There's also another incident I wish to discuss, pertaining to a mischievous little one who shared the same house with us and resided there at that point in time. In the year 96, my family and I, that's myself, my husband, and our 2 kids, went and settled into a villa house. It was a villa house which had a yard, and it also featured a swimming pool. I should also mention that when we purchased that house, it was quite ancient. We refurbished this house and thought, all right, let's reside here for a while and trust that, God willing, things will eventually unfold as they should. A short period of time passed after we had moved into that house. One day, my daughter turned to me and said, "Mom, my dolls, at night I put them on the shelf, and then in the morning when I wake up, I see 2 of my dolls have actually fallen onto my bed." I said, "Oh, perhaps your foot knocked them down. Oh, perhaps your foot knocked them down. You threw something towards the dolls. The dolls fall down. Or anyway, there must have been some reason for the dolls to fall." A few days went by, and then one night my daughter had a doll that she truly adored, and she recounted this to me later on. She folded the doll's arms and legs, then put them together. She put it on the shelf, on her doll shelf. It seems that when she woke up in the morning, she saw that doll had also fallen onto her bed. In the morning, she approached me and told me, "Mom, my dolls are moving. This doll of mine also fell down onto my bed last night." I said, "Well, perhaps there's some logical reason for this." From that very night, I made up my mind to remain somewhat more vigilant, for I sensed a peculiar and unsettling heaviness pervasive throughout that entire house. I mentioned the house was quite antiquated, despite the fact that we had renovated and updated it. When the children and my husband would go to sleep, I would then proceed into the living room. From that very night, I thought to myself, all right, I'll just sit here and observe to see if anything is genuinely present or not. Because, after all, I believed in certain things myself. During the initial night or two, I only heard a few faint sounds emanating from the children's room. I went over to investigate. All I could perceive was a sound, yet nothing was visible to my eyes. On the very next night, I proceeded to go and take a seat in the living room. I witnessed a small curly-haired boy who appeared to be about 5 or 6 years old, coming out from the children's room. He glanced at me for a short while, and indeed his countenance was exceptionally beautiful. Dark eyes and eyebrows, curly hair, but he was very handsome. He looked at me for a short moment, and I looked back at him, giving him a smile. And this one, he smiled back at me as if he wanted to ask for my permission to play for just a little while, you know. I said to him, "If you want to play, please feel completely free." As soon as I said that, I saw him jumping on the sofas. This kid, from one sofa to another, from that one to the next. I saw him just keep jumping on the sofas. I just sat there nicely and watched him. I couldn't tell how much time had gone by. Then he went into the room. He went back into the room. When I followed him, I didn't see him anymore. I said, "Oh well." So I decided to brush it off and simply went to bed to get some sleep. Until the following night, I remained awake once more. I went into the living room. It was probably past midnight, perhaps even well after. I saw him emerge from the children's room once more, carrying 2 of their dolls in his hands. He brought the dolls, placed them on the sofa, and continually played with them. He began to play, and then he kept glancing in my direction. I told him, "It's perfectly fine, go ahead and play." He glanced at me as if to convey, "I'll make sure to put these back in their proper place later on." I said, "You can play." I was sitting on a chair. Directly facing the living room, he was playing with the dolls and jumping on the sofas again. He seemed to really love doing that. Every night from then on, this became the kids' routine. I would often try to wake up in the middle of the night, then go and sit in the living room just to watch him and observe his childish games. Then one day, the AC repairman, who had visited our home, was conversing with my husband and disclosed that his sister had previously been a tenant in this very house for many years, and sadly, his sister. During her pregnancy, when she was expecting, my sister passed away. Even the baby in her womb died, and that baby was a boy. When I heard this, I pondered to myself, could it be the spirit of that very child? He was a little boy, but the signs he was giving me pointed to something from many years ago. Perhaps around 15, or possibly 20 years ago. But this little boy I was seeing looked 5 or 6 years old. But I kept telling myself it was the spirit of that same boy who came at night to play with the dolls. Some time then went by, and I ended up speaking with someone regarding this little boy with the help of one of my friends. And it was at that point I finally realized that this young boy I'd been seeing every night was definitely not a human spirit. He was a Jinn. And once I truly grasped this understanding, from that moment on, I never saw that child again, not even a single time. I didn't hear his laughter, and I also never actually saw him. No, he had actually stopped playing with the dolls. Then there came a time when we were gradually packing our belongings, getting ready to leave that house, and after that, I never saw that child again.